Go back to last season, A.J. Brown hurt his knee in the final regular season game when there wasn't anything at stake. He didn't play the next week in the opening wildcard playoff game at Tampa, and the Eagles lost. And somehow, some way, that has to be in the back of the Eagles' minds when they make this decision.
You know it's in the back of their mind. No, it's not the back of their mind. It's the front of their mind. Sports Fast Live, 97.3 ESPN. I'm at Chickies and Pete's in Atlantic City. My on-site producer, PG, Josh Henning, is back in the Ocean Casino Resort Studios. John McMullen is brought to you by Boardwalk Honda. Shop their lineup of pre-owned and certified pre-owned Hondas online at boardwalkhonda.com. So, John, it wasn't just A.J. Brown that got hurt in that last game that has the Eagles probably extra cautious for this game. They had a couple guys get hurt in that game. So do you think there was any decision that this team was even contemplating when they decided to rest not only Saquon Barkley, essentially all of the starters?
Yeah, I don't think there's any. I'm surprised how many people forgot about that. You just had Adam talking about A.J. Brown, which is obviously the most high profile, but Reed Blankenship was lost in that game. Sidney Brown tore his ACL in that game. And even Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith, they got banged up in that game, and they were able to play in Tampa. But, yeah, it was quite the attrition in that specific game. So certainly the Eagles have that in the forefront of their mind. And there's no – last year they played because there was seeding on the line. There's no seeding on the line this year. So, I said it to you on my show. It really wasn't a difficult decision for the team. Really wasn't. Pretty obvious.
Now, John, take us a little bit inside the decision. Is this a Nick Sirianni? Is this a Howie Roseman? Is this a Jeffrey Lurie? Is it is it just cut and dry? Like, hey, game means nothing. We're not even questioning this. Or is there a little bit more because of what potentially was at stake here?
No, it's pretty cut and dry from their perspective, and it's certainly an organizational decision. I think if Nick Sirianni decided to say, hey, let's just let Saquon go for the record, yeah, I think I don't think that would be his mentality to go forward that way, but for people looking for that, well, what if this, what if that, yeah, I think it would have been stopped. I think it would have been stopped by, to be honest, Jeffrey Lurie. Starts with Jeffrey.
Right, so Jeffrey Lurie is essentially saying winning the Super Bowl, and look, he's the owner of the team, to say, hey, I'm the owner of the team that has the single-season rushing record. I want to get your thoughts on that. How important, in your mind, is the single-season rushing record?
In my mind, not very. I think it's funny. You and I talked about this as well on my show. There's certain records that everybody knows. And more, I think, in baseball is a game sort of derived around historic records. 714 for many years, Babe Ruth, 755, Hank Aaron. Sports fans know these numbers. I think if you ask the average football fan in Philadelphia, what was the league rushing record back in, say, April when we started this process, what would you say? 90% wouldn't know it?
I said that at the beginning of my show today, John. I said I would say about, and maybe I'm being kind, if I said in August when they started training camp, Saquon Barkley will be the single-season rushing record. What is the number and who has it? I don't think at least 75% of the listeners probably may know Eric Dickerson has it, but likely did not know the number. People are acting like this was some sacred number that every football fan.
Which that part is ridiculous. And, any time this happens and somebody makes a run at 2,000, then people bring up Eric Dickerson. And you think it's certainly not a Hank Aaron-like record. It's not a Babe Ruth-like record. It's not a Roger Maris-like record where everybody knows it. And I would say, today I just got off the practice field. It's freezing, by the way. I asked a bunch of people. He's got the all-time receiving record. A couple knew it was Calvin Johnson, nobody knew the number.
Yeah, you know what? Honestly, I now that you say Calvin Johnson, it's not even ringing a bell like that he has the record, nor do I know the yardage total on that. I did know Dickerson and the number only because Dickerson's my favorite running back of all time. So I was a big Dickerson fan growing up. And no, that's not why I would rather Barkley break the record than Dickerson. But I don't know that many people. That being said, if the circumstances of the game were any different, do you think – I don't know what they would be, like the game, like seeding. Would seeding matter? Like last year, they were playing for seeding, nothing else, just seeding. If they had a shot at the number 1 seed, do you think that they would have played?
Oh, yeah. Oh, no question. No question. If they had a shot at the number 1 seed, they'd be playing.
Okay. What about if he was closer to the number, like 30 yards away?
No, because they pulled him. They had a chance to get him 30 yards away. There were still 10-plus minutes in the game when they pulled him last week.
Yeah.
So the whole – that was the foreshadowing of the decision. The decision was already made. The only thing that would have changed it was if things worked out, and really you would have to have Minnesota lose and Detroit lose. Minnesota played later that day, won. Detroit played on Monday night, won. You would have had to have both of those teams lose because then you would have had to have Minnesota beat Detroit in Week 18, which is still a possibility. But you have to understand, if Detroit had nothing to play for, if the Vikings lost, they would have already clinched. They'd be rested their guys. And so it's this whole thing, and it was very unlikely to happen. But Nick left the door open after the game for that reason. If there was a chance at the number 1 seed and things worked out, they would have played the game with their starters. But there isn't. So,
yeah. By the way, Barkley's last carry came at 11:34 of the fourth quarter. He ran for 23 yards. After that, Gainwell had a carry for -2, and then Philadelphia had the ball again and went 3 and out. So, they could have theoretically, after his carry, it made it 1st and 10 at the Dallas 46. They could have continued to run him the ball because it was 1st down. Gainwell did get a carry. Then they threw a touchdown pass to Smith, and then they only had the ball one more time and went 3 and out. So there was 11 and a half minutes left in that game. They could have got him another 20, 30, who knows how many yards. And I think that would have – I personally, John, think that would have clouded it a little. Like 100 yards, okay, you're not just rolling into a game getting 100. But if it was like 30, it's like, okay, you can bust one early in that game, and who knows. But it sounds like you and I are on the same page that there was not much of a decision to be made by the organization.
Their goal – in fact, Lane said it after the game. Their goal was to get to 2,000 in 16 games. As soon as he got to 2,000, they removed him from the game. That was the goal.
Immediately. Now, do you think universally that the players would rather sit the game out?
Yes.
So there's not like, hey, we really want to go. Like, there's no contention on this. I mean, did you get the sense yesterday that Barkley was disappointed? Because it seems that he has been saying all the right things, has had all the right body language, has had everything. And yesterday he did seem like it finally hit him that, man, I have a chance at this, and I'm not going to get to do it.
Yeah, I think a little bit. He said, he went to sleep. He said he was fine. Then he went to sleep and was thinking about it. And look, from an individual perspective, it's completely understandable why he would want to get the record, especially because a lot of guys aren't historians of the game. Saquon's a historian of the game, so he knows. He knew the record. He knows. And now he's focused on Terrell Davis's all-time record, which, was regular season and the playoffs, which is like 24 something. I don't know the exact number, but and now he's hyper focused on that. But I mean, it's natural for an individual to want it and to be so close because you know how difficult it is to get there. But most of these guys, with the exception of Terrell Davis, most of the guys in the 2,000 yard club are on not great teams for a reason. Because, if you're on a great team, like Saquon is, you tend to rest late in the season. You tend to get pulled. All that has happened, which speaks to just how special his season has been. And, Saquon said himself, he talked about O.J. doing it in 14 games. He talked about Barry doing it 2,000 yards and 335 carries. Said they had best. So, from his perspective, he's already probably had a year than Eric Dickerson. So, who cares?
Yeah, I listen. I would love to see him get it. It'd be really, really cool. I'm going to actually be at the game. Just the first time I've been to a game as a fan in, I don't know, I can't even remember the last time.
Ooh, it's going to be cold, Mike.
Is it going to be cold? Well, I will be. I would love to be in person to say I was at the game that he broke the single season record, but I can't in good judgment to say. And it's not only him, John. It's more than Barkley. It's Lane Johnson. It's Juergens. It's Becton, who's been in and out of games all year and has history issues. Mailata missed 4 games this year. Dickerson's been in and out of games all year. Those guys would likely have to play as well. So it's not just a Saquon Barkley decision, is it?
No, of course you can't. Yeah, everybody's got to play. So, and there's one other thing. If you look about his season as a whole, he's generally been a second half player. So you factor in, say, what if the Giants come in, playing 8-man boxes, because they don't really care. They'd probably rather have the draft capital, and they don't want the embarrassment of Saquon doing it against them, or at least Joe Shane doesn't. So who knows how they play? And if they're loading the box and you have 50 yards at halftime, you really want to send these guys out there for the second half as well.
Well, that's another good point. Is the recklessness of the now he is friends with a lot of the Giant players. Who knows? They might roll over and give it to him.
Well, that's a possibility. All these things are possibilities, but they have bigger goals. I can't believe this is this big of a debate, to be honest. I mean,
well, I'm going to read it. I'm going to read a text message that we got from somebody listening on the app and get your reaction to this. Big Daddy says this: 40 years of being a Philly sports fan. This is the biggest disappointment of my sports fandom. 15-year Eagles season ticket holder. It might be my last.
Well, yeah, I would say, and I don't know. I would ask the text message, did you honestly even know this record back in April? I mean, maybe he did. If he's been a long-time fan, maybe he knows Eric Dickerson. Like I said, the vast majority of fans didn't even know it. Mm-hmm. And it becomes a bigger thing. They build it up to a bigger thing. But, I mean, and again, I would ask everyone to look in the mirror and say, all right, let's say he gets the record and then sprains his ankle and can't play next week against Green Bay in the playoffs and the Eagles lose in the first round. Would you be happy with that record?
Well, it's not only him. It's like you said earlier. Let's say Dickerson gets hurt and he can't play, or Mailata ends up getting rolled up on. And even like with Barkley, Jalen Hurts took a hit. His head hit the turf. If that were to happen and Barkley goes in the concussion protocol, can you imagine what kind of week that would be, waiting to see if he got through the concussion protocol?
Yeah, and I know as a reporter, and you're right, it's not only Saquon Barkley. And again, I transport people back to Week 18 last year when you lose A.J. Brown and Reed Blankenship and Sidney Brown, and you lose and you get Jalen Hurts banged up and Devontae Smith banged up, and they're playing, but they're not playing at 100%. That's one game. That's one game.
Yeah.
And, I think a lot of people say, well, they were collapsing anyway. Well, I mean, you see this team with A.J. Brown on the field versus A.J. Brown off the field.
Yeah,
that's it's pretty stark difference. Yeah, I'll say it again. I used it before with Calvin Johnson. Can anybody on the text board give me who are the most high-profile players in football? Quarterbacks. What's the all-time passing rate? Single season.
Yeah. Don't know, actually. Who is the single season? Do you know? I don't want to put you. Who is it?
Peyton Manning.
Peyton Manning. Okay. John McMullen, Birds 365, Sports Illustrated, with us on the Sports Bash. There is nothing to play for this week at all. You are literally going to see like a preseason amount of games. What is Dallas Goedert's status, and what happens with him? Will he be available next week for the playoffs? I imagine he doesn't play in the game on Sunday, correct?
No, he's not going to play this. Yeah, they started his practice window yesterday. He's practicing, so they'll ramp him up to get ready for the opening in the playoffs, and he should be out there. Now, what kind of Dallas Goedert are you going to see? Hasn't played over the past 4 games. This will be the 5th game. So there might be some rust there, but Eagles need some help at tight end. I mean, C.J. Uzomah got hurt last week. He's on injured reserve, so he's done for the season. You only have Grant Calcaterra and E.J. Jenkins, so they need Dallas Goedert, but it's not going to be this week. They're going to wait for the playoffs.
So he'll be out and then be back for the playoffs most likely. So you'll be, obviously no one's going to play in the game this week. So you will be kind of an NFL anomaly, John, that a NFL team reaches the playoffs essentially healthy on both sides of the ball, right? Is there anybody that sticks out that would be in question here?
Well, there are guys banged up. That's the thing. But, yeah, I mean, as far as attrition, and if you look at what's happened to Detroit most notably, yeah, the Eagles are in good shape from a health standpoint. Obviously, I know people are concerned because Jalen Hurts is not progressing through the protocol. I think they're slow playing that on purpose. I wouldn't be too concerned about that. And, again, you get Dallas Goedert back. There's Bryce Huff is obviously completely healthy. Going to be out there. Yeah, I mean,
he was the guy I was going to ask you about individually. Is Huff? Have they given up on him for helping this team this year, or is this a week where they can say, "Hey, go let loose, go play," and if it goes well, something, or is this just a lost season for him?
Well, I think it's a lost season from the perspective of the expectations that signed, a $51 million contract to be the centerpiece of the pass rush.
Wild.
I think those are that's lost. But no, I think the hope is that he's part of the rotation and he can give them 15 to 20 snaps and hopefully a long playoff run. I think that's the goal, which is so it depends. If you can recalibrate. No, yeah, they expect him to help, but yeah, he's not going to play. He's not a starter anymore. The starters are Josh Sweat and Nolan Smith, but they want him to be somebody who can give them 15 to 20 reps in each playoff game.
Well, nothing to play for Sunday. Would you anticipate any of the starters? Or, obviously somebody has to be activated to get to 53 for game day, but do we see any of the starters on Sunday at all?
Yeah, you only get 47, so remember you have to have the inactive. So, some guys have to dress because you don't have 90 players like you do in the preseason. So some guys have to dress. Of the guys who contribute, Milton Williams may have to play a little bit because they don't have a ton of depth inside. Grant Calcaterra is going to have to play. He's been a meaningful contributor. Jahan Dotson, typically the third, he's going to have to play. Kenny Gainwell probably going to play a little bit. The linebackers are certainly going to have to dress because they don't have linebackers, a lot of depth, but your hope is Oren Burks and Jeremiah Trotter can play the whole game. The younger players, Quinyon Cooper, they might dress, but hopefully they don't have to play. So you'll see some guys dress, but that's because you have to dress a certain amount, as you said. The hope is they're not going to have to play.
All right, John McMullen, of course, Birds 365, Sports Illustrated, getting us the lowdown on the decision to not play, not only Saquon Barkley, all the starters not playing in the game. And I think it's the right decision. It stinks as a fan to not see the history here, but bigger goals, and I'm glad that they are going for the bigger goal. Doesn't guarantee they're going to get it, but you take your best swing at it. Your best swing is not only being healthy, it's being 100% healthy. Because even if you do play in the game, John, you might be a little compromise at the end. Man, the guy hit me in my thigh. I got a little bone bruise in my upper thigh, and that's bothering me and lingering around. You don't need any of that stuff. So I think the Eagles did a good job. Nick Sirianni coming out on Wednesday and basically squashing it right away and saying, nope, not going to play. And, of course, you can listen to the game right here on 97.3 ESPN. All right, well, I just got
by the way, I think the number is 5477, but you might want to check. That's the all-time passing record.
Gotcha.
So
all right, well,
in
Josh is on it.
2035, get fired up for that when the Eagles are threatening that. Right?
Josh is on that. We will, of course, keep our eyes on everything here with the Eagles and John McMullen from Birds 365. Thanks, John.
All right, thanks, Mike.
All right, there you go. Johnny Mack will be back here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN.